Hello, Monica and Stefano. It's very nice to see you. And thank you for agreeing to this meeting through cyberspace. Monica from Rome, Stefano from Berlin. For this short conversation, where I would like to ask you to talk about your personal experience of the work with the people who were affected by the coronavirus, that you were so quick to respond to and to organize yourselves to offer psychological help. Monica, shall we start with you? How did you feel when you first heard of the outbreak in Italy and when you decided to do something about it?
Thank you for inviting us to this brief talk, Emilia. Well, it was a process, of course, started unconsciously, I think in half February for me. But the idea came to me just in the early days of March. I was writing to some friends and they asked me what is going on there and in Italy. And I wrote out of myself, maybe I'm going to do something. I don't know. Maybe I'm going to try to organize some help. Mm. After a few hours, I read on Analysis and Activism mailing list, Stefano idea of doing the same, of organizing psychological support for physicians working in hospitals. So I immediately responded, hello, we were thinking the same in the same time. And this is what happened from my perspective. But at the same time, other people were thinking the same, other colleagues in Italy and also Italian colleagues abroad. So we talked and we wrote each other. And I don't know how, but the group followed. I don't remember even how, self-organizing in a very short time, in a few hours, I would say. And then few days of work on methodology, trying to imagine what we would have to face. We started with we were seven colleagues. One of them, Antonio Karim Lanfranchi, who works as physician in one of the main hospitals in Milan, guided us to empathize with what the doctors were experiencing in those hours. And I have to say that hearing the tone of his voice and feeling his suffering gave us the measure of what physicians and nurses and other staff inside hospitals were feeling. So it was, I think we instinctively perceived that the danger was for everyone and all of us were involved. There was no place to hide, so we had to fight eventually together, meaning for fight, organizing a service and doing what we could do, that is providing psychological support. And the response to our appeal by volunteer therapists in Italy was wonderful. In a few days, we reached about 130 participants, and now we are about 150 therapists, most of them Jungians, but not only. And we have different theoretical backgrounds. I mean, almost all psychodynamic, in large majority Jungians from the three main Italian associations, but also from abroad. And I think the main organizing group was composed by people living in Italy, people living in abroad, like Stefano in Berlin, Alessandra di Montezemolo in Paris, Maria Giovanna Bianchi in Geneva, but also colleagues living in Milan, like Eva Pattis Zoya and Roberto Grande. I think here the national group called, in a way. and we all responded in a very, at the same time, I would say.
If I can bring in an emotion, for me, it was I was in Italy when the crisis started. We were holidaying with my family, my daughters and wife, and we came back to Berlin. And in Berlin, it was taken as a joke, you know. And I felt really angry and helpless. Helpless because I was away from my country. I couldn't do much. So on the 8th of March, I was sitting on a bench on a little park with my daughters. The daughters were playing, and I was really sad because that morning my nephew Leonardo was born, and I couldn't be there to witness this beautiful moment. My parents couldn't be there because they had to be. So I was really, really angry and sad. So I posted on Facebook the idea that I was available for psychological support. And this is when the group got created, because Monica and I, Alessandra, Maria Giovanna, Antonio, have a group since 1 year or two when we comment and chat and complain and try to find support. And immediately the group got created. Then Roberto was included, then Eva was included. And for me, it's amazing that in a week, we had a structure, we had a method, we had a secretary, Paola, who is amazing and is helping us, and we really have to thank her because her job is amazing. Without her, the secretary work wouldn't be there. And the response, the numbers of people that said, yes, I want to do this and for free. I mean, for me, this is the magical point, where almost, if not more than 150 people now, Italians in Italy, Italians abroad, are there ready to, let's say, donate 4 sessions for free to those affected. Then the other point for me, very important, is who is our target? Who are our patients? Well, we started looking at medical doctors, at nurses, at the paramedic staff. And then we decided to enlarge our target to the whole population because it's really a struggle. We have patients that contacted us and then disappeared because medical doctor, nurses are in the trench, are in the front line. They don't have time to think. They don't have time to raise the hand and say, wait a minute, I'm going to talk to my psychologist. Yes. I personally was supposed to talk with someone, to be working with someone that contacted me, and she disappeared. She wrote me last week apologizing for having disappeared, and I tried to conversate with her via email because she said, it's not time for talking now. Yes. It's time for action. So for me, this is very touching.
Yes, and I actually had the same experience personally because we were also organized quite quickly in the UK, and it was across the disciplines. A network, I'm not quite sure where did that network come from, but it was a network for all psychotherapists, including CBT, psychodynamic, non-psychodynamic, psychoanalysts, everyone who wanted to offer free sessions for, in this case, this network was about helping people working in the health service. And there were so many, the response was so overwhelming that very soon after this network was broadcast, there was a response. The response was so overwhelming that the people who created the network then responded and said that they now had too many therapists offering help, that no one knew needed to connect. And I also had a couple of people who got in touch immediately and then disappeared. And I was wondering what happened to them. And then one of them, I was glad to see today reconnected, and now we're in the process of finding the time to work together.
I personally think that it's good that we are there. For example, yesterday in Italy, the chief responsible of security, let's put it this way, said that now it's time for psychological support, and a national coordination is starting, which is very important. But perhaps we have to be ready and to be there for the next 3, 6 months, 1 year or 2, because it's going to be a long process and recovery. What do you think, Monica?
Yes, I think that the process is going to be long. And actually, we received requests very slowly. And so we had a similar experience, Emilia. And anyway, we are doing, I think, a very important job, because even if numbers of referrals are not so high, and we have more therapists than people being helped in this moment, I think that the quality of what we are doing is really important. I personally followed a physician who is specialized in intensive care, and it was an experience very involving, and a deep. I experienced a deep connection with her, and I really felt that there was a kind of mutual relief in this work. With me experiencing the possibility to do something good for my country and for my people, and with her having a space to communicate, and the person to whom to communicate very powerful and very contrasting and very painful feelings. I mean, that was really an experience of great value for me. And she offered her perspective on the thing, and she made me understand how dehumanizing is to be a physician now in the hospitals, treating COVID-19 patients.
Humanizing.
Dehumanizing in the sense that it's dehumanizing because of the high pressure, because of the number of patients, because of for the load of work, and very the emotions that are overwhelming all the time, coming from patients, coming from family members of the patients, coming from colleagues, coming from very strict procedures they have to follow in order to keep their work going on, in order to keep separate dirty and clean things, dirty and clean spaces. And the most unbearable emotional load is the fact that people is dying alone. Often they are dying alone. And so she said, we have to play the role of family. So we are there as physicians, but also as family members. We are mothers, sisters, fathers, brothers, and we are playing that role in good time and in bad time, even to death, even being with them while they're dying. And that is very overwhelming when you have to do that for many people. And so I feel capable of reporting just a small piece of her experience, really, because it is too much for me.
And it's a pity that the way we thought of arranging these brief conversations, that now we're actually running out of time to talk more, and I feel that we only started to talk. So maybe the idea is actually to think about having more than one conversation with each of the people involved in this incredibly invaluable work. So I'll suggest that to the Publications and Communications Subcommittee. We'll think of inviting you again, actually, at a little bit later part of this process to hear more about the work you're doing.
That would be nice, very nice.
Stefano, would you like to say something before we finish?
I would like to add something else. You know that I like to interview Jungians, and I found that in the past few weeks, those that I was able to interview had an amazing heart and compassion and support. And actually, the increase in views is amazing, unexpected. So we had John Beebe talking about compensation, Verena Cass talking about creativity, uh, um, Polly Jung Eisendrath talking about taking life moment by moment. And I really hope that these two things, so the interviews and the work we do with patients, can help in this moment, you know, in this suspended moment where we have many questions, but we have few answers.
Yes.
So I would like to end with this from myself.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That has been the aim of these interviews. It is exactly that, for all of us to help each other think our way through this.
Which is a very, very challenging task now.
Yeah. Yes. So thank you again very much for this meeting this evening, and I hope to invite you soon again.
Thank you.
In the meantime, all the best and stay safe.
You too. You too. Thank you very much, Emilia.
Bye for now.